This is a patient perspective on why your health is your job. When you start having health issues, especially if it's a multitude of them at once, you have to take personal ownership of the situation. Doctors and nurses are going to do the best that they can for you within their abilities, but they have two major constraints. For one, they have to play within certain limitations, which means anything from insurance to pharmaceutical practices to what's considered common for a patient with your specific condition. Secondly, you're not their only patient. They have a lot of people they're trying to take care of. So they can't watch you every day in and out. But you know who can? You. You, or perhaps a primary caregiver, has to be the advocate for your personal health. And as an advocate, there are a lot of things that need to be done. For one, this means daily observations and data collection. Getting all the information that you can about what's happening with your body. Two, that means looking for changes. Well, you can't identify the changes if you don't have data and say, okay, my numbers have been going like this, and then they suddenly tank. Well, that's the kind of change. So you want to look for those changes and possible causes. What happened that my data changed? Did I change my diet? Did I change my sleep? Did I get a cold? Sometimes it means experimenting. So maybe you try new things because something isn't working and you try to change your diet or change your activity or whatever it may be and see if even a supplement or something, if that caused some variable and maybe it made things worse, you know not to do it. Maybe it made things better and you know to keep doing that. The doctors can't provide every detail of your life every day. They can prescribe medications, but they can't tell you because every person is so unique in their health. And they can say, in general, a patient that has your condition should be doing A, B, and C. But you may be very unique. You may be a different age. You may be a different health status going into the situation. So they can't tell you everything to put in your mouth and every minute to sleep and every activity to do. You can talk in high level with them, but ultimately you need to be doing these things, and then you use all of this to make a plan. And you follow that plan and you change it as you learn more or as you do experiments, and you adjust as you go to make sure that you're doing what's best for your health. Now, the best plan in the world is useless if you don't execute it properly. And no doctor in the world can give you the discipline to follow that plan. You, as the patient, have to really want to improve. You have to want to feel better, and you have to be willing to prioritize things in order to get there. Now, we're people, not machines, so we are going to slip here and there, and we may make conscious choices that we know aren't necessarily the best. For example, I researched what was good for my liver, and one of those items was kale. And personally, I would rather chew on an old motorcycle tire than eat a piece of kale. So I am not going to eat that, but I'll eat the other 9 foods that are good for my liver. This is where the personal accountability comes in, and our health being our job, our responsibility. If you're pre-diabetic and the research says that sweets are going to make your situation worse, and you think candy is one of the main food groups, then don't be surprised when you're diabetic. If you have liver issues and you continue to drink or do drugs or other things that are bad for it, then you have nobody to blame but yourself when your liver fails. One example of why it's important to be proactive, not just with these kind of things, but also in treatment and organization. Anything involving insurance companies, lawyers, doctors, whatever, is going to take time. Here just on December 31st, I believe it was, I saw a hematologist. I'd talked to my doctor. I said, the anemia is still terrible. It's not improving. What can we do next? So they put me in touch with a hematologist. I had the appointment. She prescribed a treatment. Even though several days later, I called the infusion center. I said, are you waiting on anything? They needed a couple pieces of information. I printed out copies, drove it to the infusion center versus waiting for faxes. Why they rely on faxes is beyond me, but that's what they do to just keep things moving. Even with all of that, a month later goes by, I still feel awful, and there's still no treatment. In fact, what shows up is a fax saying that the treatment has been denied because they didn't get answers. Turns out that the insurance company's pharmaceutical arm sent 3 faxes saying we need more information to the doctor, the hematologist, who didn't get the faxes, didn't answer it, so the claim got denied. Once the denial fax came through from the actual insurance company, the doctor called me and we had to start the whole thing again. So now here it is, mid-February. It's been 6 weeks since I was prescribed a treatment and I am still waiting to even get scheduled to begin it. So if you want to feel better sooner, you have to stay on top of coordinating with the treatment center, the doctor, the insurance company. I've got a nurse advocate at the insurance company. And even with all that, you can see it still takes forever to get some of this stuff done. As another example, I had quite a few things that were off in my labs back in, say, September. I had the vitamin D, B, folic acid, kidneys, liver, the hemoglobin was still bad, and iron, all these things. Well, my labs in December came back and I had gotten this back to normal. This was back to normal. This was back to normal. These kidneys were even back to normal. Still battling the hemoglobin. The liver was down. And again, this is because I did my research on good foods for the liver. I was doing the right things with supplements and everything for all these others. So I made improvements, and even the liver was 25% reduction, so I'm getting closer to what the normal range should be for it. So just an example of being proactive, doing the right things day to day, and following the plan can improve your health. The anemia is still the #1 issue that I am dealing with that causes me to have poor breathing, poor energy, poor endurance, fatigue, just not good. For a person like me, I should be around 17 for hemoglobin. I'm at 9. So it's almost half of what it should be. Now, if I were down to 7, I could get a transfusion, but insurance won't give me a transfusion if I'm at 9 because it's not bad enough. So I'm stuck over here. Now, because the procedure was in June and they'd nicked my bladder, I've been pissing blood since from June all the way to December and had been on blood thinners. The doctors had told me that I needed the blood thinners for the heart implants 6 months. So as soon as the 6 months hit, I stopped taking those blood thinners because they're preventing the nicks inside my bladder from healing. And so I stopped instantly instead of waiting for my next cardiology appointment, proactively quit, but still following their rules. So I stopped the blood thinners at that time. And I also stopped lifting weights for several weeks, waiting to see clear urine. Once a few weeks had gone by, clear urine, then I started going easily into the gym, swimming, lifting very lightly, trying to get my body moving again, active again. Also, that's important because to get my iron numbers up, I have to eat more red meat. And if I'm going to do that, I need to be working off the calories I take in, or I'll gain weight and have trouble breathing again. So it's, you're stuck in this thing where you're trying to get all the food you need to be healthy. Well, if you eat too little, you have problems. If you eat too much, then I gain weight and can't breathe. So that all goes bad. So I need the activity at the gym to try to balance all this out. So again, this is a very complex situation that I have, but it's important to me to feel my best as long as I can. So I'm trying to do everything I can, balancing out this plan, balancing the activity with the sleep, with the food and diet and everything I'm doing. Now, since I've lost the weight, I'm actually closer to 200 pounds right now as opposed to the 215, 220 I was back in June. And that has been the one thing I've been able to do to get the breathing improved. So that's why it's very important for me to keep that weight down, but still get in all the stuff that's going to hopefully help all these numbers continue to improve. And one thing I don't want to do is exercise too much or else I might get short on my hemoglobin and my iron and everything else either, because all that activity takes blood activity and flowing oxygen and everything else. So I right now either swim a day or I lift in a day, but I don't do both because I want to make sure that I'm getting enough activity without overdoing it. The other thing that I'm now doing is TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. I've always shied away from this for a couple of reasons. For one, once you start TRT, you're pretty much stuck on it for life, because when you take this, your body's natural production says, well, I don't need to do this anymore because his levels are high enough. Now, my testosterone levels were not actually bad. They were 550 or whatever, I think, at the time. And that's not terrible, but in theory, more will make you feel better energy-wise and everything else. There's a couple things about this. One, as a downside, is that it can make your heart size increase. And I already have a severely dilated heart. So this is a concern to make it grow even faster, because that can lead to heart failure. So that's the downside of it. However, it's also been shown that it can improve ejection fraction and heart failure patients. So that's a plus, that it could be helping with that. The other thing is, right now with my hemoglobin and iron so low, my blood cell count's low and all that, my energy levels are low, testosterone will increase red blood cell production and energy, strength and all that. So TRT is sort of perhaps bridging the gap while trying to figure out this mess with getting my iron infusion treatment and getting the anemia fixed. So it's a bit of an augmentation for the anemia right now. Now, obviously, there's pros and cons. This is why it's very important to talk to your doctors, make sure they're all aware of what you're doing. And for me personally, because I have a pretty short span in front of me, I'm not really worried about long-term effects of TRT, right? I'm more concerned with, I want to feel as good as I can, as long as I can in the near term. So I made the decision with the doctors to go ahead and get on this TRT, accept the risk, and hopefully get the benefits. Don't make the mistake of thinking you have more time than you actually do. You have to proactively be working with your doctors, caregiver, nurses, pharmacists, nurse advocates, whatever it may be, all the resources you have to be managing your health and get yourself feeling as good as you can as soon as you can before the next health issue comes up. And that's one thing I'm doing here, and why is because all this mess that I'm dealing with, I haven't been able to breathe well or have decent energy for over a year now. Well, if I don't get this kind of stuff fixed with the hemoglobin and whatever else soon, then it's only a matter of time before the next leak around that heart valve springs open between the valve perimeter and the scar tissue, and I'm right back to where I was in June again. So I have to get all this stuff fixed, or I'm not going to be healthy when this happens, and my recovery abilities just go down and down and down. And if I'm already fighting things with liver or whatever else, all these problems just compound. You want to be as healthy as you can when the next issue happens. Your clinical team can only do so much for you. You have to want to get better. You have to take ownership and responsibility, and coordinate with everybody, do your research, make your plan, and stick to it. If you sit around waiting for miracles or somebody else to do your job with health management for you, then you're going to become a victim of your own apathy. Nobody's coming to save you. Any support you do get from other people should be a bonus, not a baseline. Your health is your job. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel below, hit the little bell for notifications, and let's live for today.